What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor season 41, episode 8. We are almost at the finish line, like 1 month until the finale, which is insane. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and this week we got a new installment in Survivor lore. You have heard of banana etiquette. Now there's volume 2, papaya etiquette. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, we start off this episode with the Yase 3, except it's over. The band is broken up. They are no longer a threesome duo. Everyone last week online was like, yes, we love the underdogs. We want to root for the three people on the bottom, sticking together, fighting through all of the tough times. But alas, we start the episode off seeing the Yase 3. They are going around telling everyone that this trio, they are done. They are not really working together anymore. And this is sort of what we thought last week in last week's podcast. We were thinking, oh, are they such a strong three? Yes, they started the whole season together, but are they a strong three, or were they only brought together last week because of the circumstances, having Evie being the only person basically up for elimination and then coming together because of those circumstances? So it does seem like it might have been more of the circumstances bringing them together to work together last week. And then this week, they're realizing sticking together as a trio here is not really going to work out because they're on the bottom and they can't really seem to pull anyone over to want to work with them to flip the script.
I also feel like part of it was Evie and Xander kind of had their falling out based on what Deshaun said at Tribal Council. Xander no longer feels like he can trust Evie, which is important when you're in an alliance with someone. So I feel like for me, the big thing was I feel like we should have seen more of Tiffany this episode because it felt like the story was mostly about Evie and Xander, even though Tiffany was the one who eventually went home. So, yeah.
Yeah. The episode was interesting. Like, we saw some of the fallout from last time as well, where Deshaun said at Tribal that Evie told him everything about Xander and the idol on that island trip that they went to together. And Xander didn't actually know that Evie told other people that information. So I thought that was interesting because last week at Tribal, we were wondering, okay, maybe Evie told Xander about that they spilled the beans to Deshaun previously, so Xander isn't going to be hurt by that information. He already knew that information, but apparently not. And this was new information to Xander, maybe causing some more of a rift between those two, but also maybe not. We'll have to see if they can come back together now that Tiffany was voted out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That doesn't seem very likely to me just because it seems like they both have better prospects, or at least Xander has better prospects since the majority right now is willing to work with him. And I guess it depends on whether or not Xander realizes that the majority will turn on him as soon as he's no longer useful. So.
Yeah, and then also at the start of this episode, Evie is going on a relationship recovery tour, as they said, because they say they were playing too hard last week, which I don't know. I was like, I don't really feel like Evie was playing too hard last week, and that's why they were on the chopping block to go home. It was more like they were put into that do or die situation because Erica broke the hourglass and they only had to play hard last week because they were on the chopping block, not like Evie went into the merge guns blazing kind of thing. So it's sort of weird how Evie thinks, oh, I need to go and do this relationship recovery tour because it was my fault. I was playing too hard. But good for them because it could help to gain those relationships back. Although, as a viewer, I feel like it wasn't Evie's fault that they were on the chopping block last week and were forced to play hard because they were on the block last week.
Yeah, I feel like Evie did the right thing by going on a relationship apology tour, but I also feel like because of the shortened timeline of the season, it felt very scrambly. to people, if that makes sense. Like, people definitely knew that they were apologizing because they were on the bottom and not necessarily because they felt genuinely bad. And, like, I believe that they did feel genuinely bad, but it's like one of those things where sometimes apologizing is actually the wrong thing to do because people won't believe it.
Yeah, hopefully, I guess it was helpful to get Evie back in to the swing of things with other people, but I guess it's needed because it's Survivor, and for the social game, you sort of have to suck it up and you have to apologize and say you're sorry, even if you didn't do anything wrong, you know? So it just sort of felt weird because as a viewer, it's like, I don't think Evie was playing too hard last week, like going into the merge like that, but it's more like because they were the only person up for elimination, because Ricard was safe, and because Erica broke the hourglass, that they had to play so hard.
Yeah, so I think part of it is people are like still kind of bitter about it. Like, Deshaun was really bitter that Evie voted for him, even though like he was really Evie's only choice. So it was a whole mess.
In Tiffany's exit interview with Rob Has a Podcast, she was saying that if Erica didn't break the hourglass last week, I guess, that the Yase 3 could have gone further together and maybe have done better, because Tiffany was saying, okay, if the timeline remained unchanged and the Tiffany group didn't win the challenge and they were still up for elimination, that probably Erica would have been voted home to go home last week over Sydney, and then it wouldn't have shined such a spotlight on the trio of Evie, Xander, and Tiffany. And then maybe, you know, Liana wouldn't have flipped last week to do some kind of move because like Xander and Tiffany were also both up for elimination. The consensus would have been an Erica vote. And so maybe this whole group of the original Yasa people wouldn't have fractured so quickly if Erica didn't break that hourglass.
Yeah, but I also kind of wonder if it's better for them all that they fractured so quickly, because I feel like Xander especially is in a worse place. Like, it's one of those things where, like we talked about last week, sometimes it's easier to play from the bottom as a single or as a duo. So maybe it's for the better. I'd be interested to see how the rest of this season goes for the remaining two Yasa members. So
I agree. Like we said last week, we thought that the Yasa 3, it's going to be difficult because a threesome is just more threatening than a twosome. So now that Tiffany has been voted out, low key, I feel like Evie and Xander could maybe try to fall back into the cracks and work with other people, because other people are going to be more willing to work with a twosome over a threesome. And so they could potentially fall back into things, but also certain people have it out for other certain people that I think Evie and Xander will still have a spotlight on them next week.
yeah, yeah. So I think it'll be interesting. I think Xander more than Evie, because he still has that idol and everyone is very aware of the fact that he still has the idol. But I feel like the people with the idols are going to need to start getting some heat. Otherwise, they're just going to be able to walk the whole way, because like we saw this week, the majority kind of messed up with the vote split. So
Which we'll get to with the tribal council, which is also a big SMH. But going into the reward challenge, they get to draw rocks again to make teams. And I'm like, okay, what are the chances that the rock draw gives basically the exact same groupings as 2 weeks ago at the Big Boulder Challenge with rock draw statistics? Erica picked the last rock here, and then she got the bad rock, which is like wild that all the other people picked a colored rock and then she got the odd rock out, that she got to sit out of the challenge again. Like, there's some statistics on that. Like, when you pick the rock, it's a higher percent that like you would get the good rock or the bad rock. I'd be interested to know the math on that.
yeah, I would be too, especially like I wonder if it was intentional or not. Like, people have said that like the All Stars like tribe switch was rigged, and really you could only pick the buff at the top or whatever. And I feel like that wasn't true in this case, but poor Erica. But also, I thought it was interesting that like there was no twist. Like, oh, the sit out gets to like go with the winning team just because last time it was kind of like one of the sit outs gets screwed. So maybe this time one of the sit outs should get a good thing.
Yeah. There was no twist for the sit out bench person because Jeff, talk to us, the viewer at home, sitting on the couch, that there's an advantage on this sit out bench. And I'm like, he keeps staring into our souls when he breaks the fourth wall. I'm like, stop looking at me.
I thought it was interesting though because that like little scroll of paper, it wasn't like you could subtly feel underneath the bench to find it. Like you would have to dig.
I like Xander or whoever was sitting on the bench. I agree with what you're saying. You couldn't just like eye it and be able to see it because the scroll was like hidden so well. You would literally have to rub your hand all over the bottom, the side, that curve where it was at in order to feel that little piece of paper. You know, it wasn't super obvious that there was something there. So you'd have to like stand up, bend down, and then look under the bench or rub your hands all up on the wood pieces, get some splinters, maybe because you're rubbing it like that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like you can't really fault Xander for not finding it because it was sort of difficult to find. It was so small and it wasn't so obvious, I feel like.
Jeff faults Xander for not finding it. But also, I'm glad that he didn't because we already have way too many advantages. Unless this was a disadvantage.
I guess we never know now, Alyssa. It could be a disadvantage and he loses his vote forever again.
That would be nice.
I was also glad that Xander didn't find it because we already have 3 idols in play, 2 extra votes in play still after last week. And yeah, the only real time that Xander could have looked for the advantage would be when the challenge started because the people were swimming towards him and he was sitting by the puzzle at the end. So if he really wanted to like stand up and inspect and rub his hands all over the bench, he would have had to do it at the beginning, which I feel like at the beginning of the challenge, you're trying to be more low key because the challenge just started, but that was really the only time to do it because everyone was still far away. When they were doing the puzzle, they were like 10 feet from him.
Yeah, so sucks to suck if you're Xander, I guess, but I don't know. Would you have liked to see Erica get an advantage if Erica had remained the sit out?
I feel like I'd be on the same page of glad that the person wouldn't find it this week because there still are so many advantages in play, but it's probably going to be on a sit out bench or something next week, and there's still the same number of advantages in play. I think it would have been more interesting if it were a schoolyard pick rather than a random rock draw to pick who got the odd person out spot. Because if you got random captains, each time a new captain is chosen and like it's random, you pick a rock to become the captain, and then you do the schoolyard pick, and then the person not chosen gets to be on the sit out bench. Like, I feel like it would cause so much more drama rather than, oh, Erica picks the bad rock again, because then people would be like, why don't you pick me for your team? Oh, it's because I don't like you, or oh, it's because I think you're unathletic. So I feel like that would cause so much more drama. It'd be more funny than just picking rocks.
Yeah, I always feel like schoolyard picks are good for that reason, but also I feel like a lot of times people end up with a stacked team because it's like all of the Luvu members are going to be mad if the Luvu members like don't pick each other, and all the Luvu members are also the strong ones. So,
but with this rock job, maybe it is a little bit manipulated because it's like the one team is stacked again. Just like the big boulder challenge, it's like all of the super physical athletic big people are on one team and then all of like the women are on the other team again. It's like, what are the statistics there? How did that happen?
yeah, I don't know. So,
I thought it was so funny though, Xander willing to trade spots with Erica. That is such blatant pandering, right? Like, do other people realize that he was just doing it to maybe get Erica on his side or to maybe get more friends on his side in general by giving up his spot in the challenge to let Erica compete and potentially win something? It just felt so like obvious pandering. Deshaun's face when Xander was saying he was going to trade with Erica was so funny. Deshaun was giving such side eye. Like, everyone's got to realize it, right?
I feel like everyone has to realize it, except for maybe Erica, who is just excited in the moment that she gets the opportunity to play. So,
Would it be better to say, like, oh, I'm Xander, I'm lactose intolerant, I can't eat grilled cheese?
I feel like that would make it worse because then it's like, oh, I'm doing this thing for me. Whereas right now, it's like, obviously, I'm doing this thing for you. So maybe even if everyone else sees it as pandering, Erica still has to be grateful. Whereas if he was like, oh, I'm lactose intolerant, even Erica wouldn't really owe him anything.
That's true. That's true. So Xander gets to be on that sit out bench, doesn't find the idol, which is a good thing. The challenge happens, and Evie beasts out that puzzle at the end. And I was like, yeah, go, Evie. That's so fun. Very similar to in Spencer memorizing that puzzle that we DIY'd on our channel. He memorized that before going out there and then won the immunity challenge because of it. Very similar here. Evie memorized this puzzle and then won the reward challenge for their team.
I like literally the moment I saw that puzzle, I was like, oh, we could totally DIY that puzzle. And I was right. So I feel like maybe when we do those DIYs, we should do this puzzle just because it seems like a pretty easy puzzle to do. And yeah, like Evie said, if you know how to do it, it's really easy. I wonder whether or not it was a good idea to admit to being like a Survivor superfan who like memorized puzzles. But, you know, when you're excited about something, you're excited about something.
I agree, Alyssa. On the hiatus, since we have a longer hiatus until March now for Survivor Season 42, once we're doing these DIY challenges again, we can do this one as a DIY. Is this bad for production though? Because it's like, should they be coming up with new challenges, new puzzles? Every single challenge this season so far has basically been some kind of obstacle course swimming thing, and then you do a puzzle or like basketball kind of thing at the end. Like, it's cool to see, oh, cool, Evie and Spencer getting their moment, saying that they memorized the puzzle. They won a challenge so quickly because they are super fans of the show and they did the homework before going out there to be good at puzzles like this. But if this keeps happening and everyone is starting to memorize puzzles and then they get on Survivor, does that ruin the fun? Because it's like challenges, it just is won in like 30 seconds, whereas people would be struggling on a puzzle like this usually. I feel like maybe Survivor needs to come up with new puzzles so that this doesn't happen every single challenge.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you have to balance like rewarding the people who know how to play and stuff and making it like a fair game. And I guess you could argue that like everyone could theoretically like go on the island and memorize all the puzzles. But I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where reusing something too many times, especially like I think reusing puzzles where it's not one of those things that's just like three pieces that you have to align in the right way is fine. But because these are literally just rote memorization, that's where it's a problem. Like you can reuse puzzles, just think about which puzzles to reuse.
That's true. Like, the puzzles that are more complicated, that are like, I feel like, you know, the fire puzzles where you put the pieces on, or like you have the arms of a thing and you have to put the pieces on, where sure, you can make that at home. And like, there are pages that create puzzles and sell Survivor puzzles that you can make it at home, sure. But it's different from when you're out there, that the puzzle pieces might be different, even if you've practiced that kind of thing at home, versus these like memorization puzzles that Evie did this time and Spencer did. Like, it's literally the same thing every time, that if you can do it once at home, you can totally do it on the island, versus other kinds of puzzles. Maybe you did something similar at home, but it's different on the island because it's a different kind of puzzle, you know?
Yeah. So I guess still good for Evie. You could also argue that because these, like, they are kind of like a double-edged sword where, like, maybe you win one reward challenge, but then you have a target on your back. Like, maybe that's why they keep reusing these puzzles, even knowing that some people memorize them. So,
Yeah, it's just like, imagine everyone just memorizing every single survivor puzzle, and then the puzzles take 10 seconds at the end of every challenge. It's sort of a bummer because it's the puzzle's the great equalizer. So if that takes 10, 30 seconds and you can't have the other team catch up or pass because you memorized every puzzle, like, yeah, good for you for memorizing all the stuff and doing your homework, but I don't know. It sort of ruins the fun if it continues to keep happening.
yeah. So, I guess we'll have to see. I feel like it happening like once every couple seasons isn't that bad, but
I agree. You know, once in every 10 seasons doesn't really matter. Once every season, twice every single challenge every season, then I think we're going to have a problem.
yeah.
So, speaking of problems, fun debacles, we get to what Alyssa alluded to at the start of our podcast with the papaya-gate. Nasir, amazing Nasir. He is off finding papayas in the trees. I felt like Nasir had the right attitude with losing the reward challenge. So, like we were just talking about, Evie's team, the blue team, I think, won the reward challenge. So they get the grilled cheese. The people on the losing team were all very sad that they lost that challenge. And Nasir has a great confessional saying, like, he can eat steak at home. He's not going to cry over a grilled cheese. And I liked that attitude from him.
Yeah, I like that attitude too, especially because, like, I understand that it's sad to lose a reward challenge when you're already so low on food, but some people were acting like this was like a five-course meal. Like, in the grand scheme of things, grilled cheese isn't even that good because it doesn't have that much protein. Like, what you really need on the island is protein because basically bread and rice are the same. They're just like simple carbs. Like, you could make an argument that the cheese is better, but like I would even say that papaya is better than grilled cheese because papaya has sugars. Grilled cheese doesn't.
You tell them, Alyssa. And if you're lactose intolerant, grilled cheese might not be good. If you're vegan, maybe you're not eating grilled cheese as well. That you're just eating the chips. But alas.
Yeah. So, anyways, papaya-gate. Nasir gets these papayas. He cuts them up. It's all good. He's sharing papayas. The people who went on the reward challenge come back to camp, including the one and only Ricard. He walks over, takes a piece of papaya, and Shan loses her shit. I guess maybe loses her shit is a bit strong of a descriptor. Shan is upset with Ricard for taking a piece of papaya.
And there's so much conversation around papaya-gate online. And for me, I feel like they're both sort of in the right and both sort of in the wrong. Like, both of them sort of handled this whole entire situation poorly, and it's causing more divide potentially to happen between them. They both said that they're each other's number one this episode, so maybe it hasn't caused a super big rift between them. But considering they're like fighting in previous episodes with the advantages, it just seems like they have a lot of tension and potential grudges in their relationship. And so, like, for Shan's side of the story, like, it's not in the survivor rule book that people on reward can't come back home and then they can't eat the food for the rest of the day, but it's sort of written in like the survivor social game meta of the game that if you go on reward, you're not getting the rice or whatever food when you come back from reward at camp. So that makes sense. That's the like reasoning that Shan is going on. From Ricard's point of view, he's coming back and he tweeted that he has never had papaya before, so he just wanted to try this fruit because you're like, oh, you're on Survivor. This is a new experience. You want to try all of these new things. He has never had this food before. So, you pick it up by accident and he like tastes a piece. And like from his point of view, it's such a small piece. It's not like he took a whole entire slice or a whole papaya fruit or anything. Like he took a little nibble to try the fruit.
Yeah, and I guess it's also like I said, grilled cheeses are not the most nutritionally like valuable thing in the world. If you eat one sandwich, you're still going to be hungry. I guess like I'm more on Ricard's side because it's not like Rachel said, it's not like he ate a whole papaya. He just had a small bite. Shan is realistically not going to notice a small cube of papaya missing from her stomach. And I feel like it's one of those things where like why are we fighting about this? You can be annoyed about it, but like is it worth the fight?
Probably more calories to fight about it. Like, I think it just goes to show more of the miscommunication in their relationship, causing more problems because of how they both handled this situation. And then, even after the situation, like continuously bringing it up. And then we see them both like telling other people about what happened and then bad mouthing the other person because of what happened. It's sort of like, I don't know if like there's so many just like things that went wrong here that didn't need to happen that would have made this maybe less problematic for their relationship because it could cause such a big rift, these two, if they continue to fight. So it's like they could have maybe had a private conversation like, hey, I didn't like it when you did this. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Explain both of their sides rather than when they get back to camp, they're like bad mouthing the other person because of the whole papaya thing. Like, it's going to cause problems that are
Yeah.
unnecessary.
It's one of those things where their relationship problems are now like common knowledge. So it would be very easy to like put a wedge in that relationship just because everyone knows that they're fighting. Like it's not like one of those things where like they're fighting but it's private.
Maybe it's all acting to make people think they're not close. But this whole food issue really reminds me of the most recent season of Survivor South Africa. Alyssa and I just covered that on our channel. And we also in that season saw so much friction around food like this. No spoilers or anything, but in that season, we saw a player, they were hungry, they didn't get a lot of food as well in that season. They were taking food and cooking for themselves at night. And where the problem was that the person was taking the communal rice and, quote, stealing it and cooking it for themselves at nighttime. So then people got mad. But then after that, they just took crabs and stuff that they caught themselves to cook alone in the middle of the night and eat. Technically, nothing wrong with it. It's not illegal in Survivor, but social game wise, people didn't like it once they caught them, and caught what the person was doing with the food. So I feel like it's sort of similar to here. What Ricard ate the papaya isn't illegal in Survivor, but social game wise, it has caused some problems.
Exactly. So I guess it's one of those things where I'd be interested to see if papaya-gate gets more traction or if this was just like a padding to show the dissolution of Shan and Ricard's relationship.
I wonder too, because I don't know, Alyssa, for me as a viewer, watching people fight over food isn't necessarily that fun to watch, especially with like food insecurity all over the world and stuff. And like, I don't know, it's just sort of uncomfortable to watch people fight over not having food.
I think part of it is it's not like there's a clear answer of like, oh, this person is wrong and this person is right. And then also, like you said, food insecurity is a really big problem. And you know that all of these people are going to be going back home where they get like 3 square meals a day, where it's not like any of these people are having these reactions because they're like used to fighting over food,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. It's just everyone is hangry and it's not a real problem.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's sort of like, why can't we give these people rice? Because if they're so hungry that it starts to affect gameplay, and people don't want to leave the camp because they're so tired. They don't want to strategize because they're so tired. Then I feel like the lack of food here becomes a problem. That I'm like, give them more food, because Survivor isn't fun if everyone is sleeping all day, if nobody is strategizing because they don't have the calories or energy to get out of the shelter and to go strategize and talk with people. I think that's where the lack of food starts to become a problem in the show. And it's sort of like Big Brother with slop. Like, what's the point of making the players starve and eat this gross food? Same thing with Survivor. Like, as a viewer, the starvation aspect, it doesn't really translate to the viewers, I feel like, because the people watching, most people probably have never experienced what the people on the island are going through in terms of food. So it's like, as a viewer, I don't know, it's like we can't relate to the whole food problems that they're having with like this kind of starvation.
And I think part of it is like it's meant to play up the like survivalist aspect, but it's like you need calories to be able to go get calories. And a lot of times they're not really taught how to do anything, like where to find fruit or where to find like fish, you know? And it's like you can't expect a bunch of people from like suburban America, because let's be real, a lot of these people are from like suburbia or urban areas. Like, you can't expect them to be dropped on an island in Fiji and know how to forage for food. So I feel like it's one of those things where if you want it to be like a survival aspect type thing, give them more resources so they can find food on their own rather than just like starve them and hope that it makes them go look for more food. Like, and I don't know. I think it definitely is telling that on this season, the one person who is consistently able to find food is Nasir, who is the one person who like has talked about living in an environment where he had to like forage for his own food before, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Survivor, in terms of the whole survivalist aspect, is going down a weird road. I feel like on the off season, Alyssa, we should do a podcast about the whole swimsuit thing, and they're not allowed to have swimsuits anymore. So you're in your like underwear all the time, which is just so problematic in itself. And then not feeding people at all. Like, I don't know. It's like that I don't know if that makes good TV. It's just sort of like bad for the people on the show.
Suffering isn't interesting to watch when there is no purpose.
Alas. So yeah, papaya-gate, it will be interesting to see if they continue to like fight over food in general, other people, not just Shannon Ricard. And it will be also interesting to see if Shannon Ricard's relationship is on the rocks, or if they're recovering from all of these squabbles that they keep having. So I think those two things will be interesting to keep an eye out for. Just, if this keeps happening, and I think it'll get old very fast, because if people aren't going to strategize because they're so tired, like, that's not fun.
Exactly.
So, speaking of food, we get to the immunity challenge, and I'm like, where's Angelina when you need her? She could have negotiated all of the rice for everyone rather than what happened here.
Yeah, this was wild. So
I
basically,
wonder,
go
did
for it.
Angelina inspire this
I feel
twist?
like she must have, just because, like, she must have. That's all I think.
Yes. So yeah, you were saying, explain the choice here.
So basically, the idea is if one person sits out, they get one single portion of rice. If a certain amount of people sit out, then they get enough rice for the whole tribe for 3 days. And the twist is that Jeff doesn't tell them how many people have to sit out in order to get the rice for the whole tribe. It's a negotiation. He opens the negotiation with 7 people. They barter it down to 5, and then eventually they get it down to they need 4 people to sit out. And this was actually, I think, kind of interesting because you definitely got to see like the people who were more individualistic versus the people who were like more communally focused. just because it's like within the first 10 seconds of the immunity challenge, like 5 people had already dropped out, and it's like you could have easily just been the 5 people who sat out for the rice, but you weren't. So that was fun.
Yeah, the first person to step forward is Shan, then Nasir's the second. Xander steps up and says, "Hey, I'll be the fourth if someone else is the third." Totally trying to get allies through that move again, which is, that's a good play. Ricard is then the last person. Basically, I wonder if Ricard stepped forward to sort of say sorry to Shan about the papaya stuff, because sort of awkward. Shan and Ricard are standing next to each other in that line, and it's like Shan is looking around like, "Hey, is anyone else going to step forward?" Ricard hasn't stepped forward yet, so I do wonder if Ricard did choose to step forward in the end because of the papaya stuff.
I do wonder that too, just because Ricard did mention that he worried that Shan would resent him. So
Yeah, good play for the 4 people. They got rice for everyone, but also I feel like in Survivor, it's not like anyone is going to bow down to your feet or like owe you anything because you stepped forward. Like maybe they'll remember it at Final Tribal Council or something, but it's not like, "Hey, I'm not going to vote out Nasir tonight because he stepped forward for rice." It's like, nah, you can still go home tonight.
yeah, I did think it was interesting that no one tried to like use that as leverage. Like, I will step forward if you promise not to vote me out.
Then I'd be like, we are totally voting you out just to make it funny. Like, hee hee, $1 million rice kernel.
Yeah. But
But the challenge, they had to balance on their toes and keep a wood block up. 3 people were out in the first 30 seconds of the challenge. Like, WTF there. Heather and Evie were the last 2 people standing, which I was surprised by. And then Evie wins the challenge in 4 minutes.
I was looking about this on Reddit, and someone posted a side by side of Spencer's like tiptoes in his hour-and-a-half challenge win and Evie's tiptoes in their 4-minute challenge win. And Spencer's feet were like basically like barely, they were like this, and Evie had to be like this. So like it makes sense that Evie like got out much, like didn't last as long because they had a much like stronger like foot arch curve thing. I saw someone speculating on Reddit that part of the reason it might have been harder for the guys who all dropped out was because they exaggerated their heights. Like
Oh.
maybe they said that they're 6'2" when really they're 6'1", so they had to be higher on their tiptoes in order to have it work for them because all of the rigs are custom built for the players' heights. So
Is this Tinder? But do they not measure them on the island? I feel like if they just took your word for your height, that would be a little bit like sketchy. But also, I saw on Reddit people were saying, "Oh, when they measure you, you should slouch." So you get an advantage on these height challenges.
I guess maybe they measure you as part of like your incoming physical.
Hmm.
I don't know though.
You just slouch a bunch. Oh my gosh. I don't, with these challenges that used to run so long and now they're going so short, Jeff is like touting, "OMG, this is so short. It used to be 90 minutes before, and now it's only 4 minutes. Look how hard this season is," kind of stuff. I don't know. I feel like personally, I'm a fan when challenges do go super long. I want to see a 5-hour challenge, endurance. Let's go. Let's see it. See how far these people can push themselves. But then Jeff saying, "Oh, it used to be so long. What's up with you people? You must all suck because you didn't last 90 minutes. What's wrong with you all?" But then I'm like, the challenge is different now. So you can't really compare one win to another when the challenge is different, like you were saying with the foot positioning. And the challenges are harder now because of they're making it more difficult. In like Winners at War, didn't we see a challenge? It used to last so long. Winners at War, it didn't last long at all because they made the wood beams that you were balancing on so small that people fell off so much more quickly than they used to do before. So it's like you can't compare, 90 minutes to 4 minutes because it's harder. So I'm like, I don't think it's something to tout like, "Oh my gosh, 4 minutes, haha. But it's like, I want to see the 90-minute challenge. Like, make it easier so people can go for longer.
I think it's interesting though, because in the 90-minute challenges, we don't really see how hard they struggle. Like, because it's always edited down to like a 5-minute clip anyway, like the only reason you know it's 90 minutes is because they tell you that it's 90 minutes. Like, they could have said this challenge was 90 minutes and we never would have known. But I don't know. I think it's interesting to see kind of like the real timeness of it all when you have these like really short challenges.
Yeah, I just, when they're so short like this, and it's less about endurance strength, but it's more here for Evie's win about like balance and your tiptoe calf leg strength, versus for longer challenges, it's also about balance and your calves, but also about endurance. How far can you push yourself? How far can you push your body? How badly do you want it? So I feel like that aspect is so interesting, and that aspect is something that we're losing when the challenges are like, they literally edited the challenge to make it longer than it actually was for, like, it's like they made it slower on the TV than it actually happened in real life.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess I can see both sides of the making challenges harder versus not making challenges harder thing. Because you could also argue that in the longer challenges, if you're in second place, you lose a lot more with the longer challenges. Because if you are the person who drops out at minute 89 of 90, like you just expended 89 minutes worth of calories instead of like 4. So I guess maybe they were thinking about that also.
Yeah, and also online they're saying that Jeff and production don't want to do those long challenges because of like the number of staff and crew that you need to be at those challenges. Like, they're not going to stand out there for 6 hours when you could do a 5-minute challenge and get the same kind of result. But I don't know. I like the long challenges, so I feel so sad that they're all so short.
Yeah. But Eddie wins, which was good. They said that they really needed that win, and I agree entirely, especially because coming back from the immunity challenge, we see the majority being like, our plan was Evie, and now we can't do that.
So, pre tribal, they are coming up with a lot of different kinds of plans. One of the original majority plans was to split the vote between Xander and Tiffany, which honestly, the majority messed up here. Like, you have to put more votes on the person with the idol. You have to put more votes on Xander than you do the backup person in Tiffany, so that either Xander plays the idol and he's safe, the backup person goes home, or Xander doesn't play the idol and he gets voted out with an idol in his pocket. You can't just put 2 votes on Xander hoping that he's going to play the idol by accident or on purpose and then only get 2 votes or 0 votes against him. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's such a big flub here that they didn't split the votes on Xander and Tiffany, or Xander and whoever you want the backup person to be, Nasir, Heather, whoever that person is. Xander needed more votes so that you would force him to play the idol and flush it.
The thing is, I feel like it's one of those things where if you can convince Xander that he is going to have more votes than whoever the backup person is, that's better, because then he doesn't get to say, like, at Final Tribal, if he gets to Final Tribal, oh, I had this successful idol play at just the right time to save me. Where it's a lot better if you can get someone to misplay their idol than if you just make it so your backup plan goes home because someone plays an idol correctly.
I guess so. I feel like it's harder to get someone to misplay their idol, so that's why it's just easier if you want a surefire thing that someone plays their idol, like give Xander more votes than the backup person, because to try to trick someone into playing their idol when they don't have to, I think is a harder uphill battle than just sticking more votes on the person that you want to flush their idol for. And like, so many things could go wrong, I guess, where if you split the votes like they did with Tiffany with a lot and Xander Oling with 2, say Xander did play the idol for Tiffany or for someone else in that case, like, you could have doubly messed up everything. Like,
Yeah, it just, I'm confused how the majority managed to flub it so much, especially because their plan didn't even really change. Like, it should have just been, if they changed their backup vote, they should have just been like, okay, everyone who was supposed to vote for Nasir now vote for Tiffany instead, you know? So,
Yeah. So some of the backup votes that we see, Danny and Deshawn, they want to vote Nasir and Tiffany, trying to flush Nasir's idol or send Nasir home with an idol in his pocket. So that is interesting. So it doesn't seem like Nasir is as close with the guys and Danny and Deshawn from their original tribe as we thought. Shan, to this plan of Nasir and Tiffany as the vote, says no. Xander's the bigger threat over Nasir. I agree with Shan's reasoning here because Nasir is working with Shan. We hear Nasir say that Shan and Ricard are his like number 1 and 2. So for Shan, she's 100% right. Doesn't make sense to vote Nasir out here to try to like get with or appease Danny and Deshawn because Nasir is going to be your loyal number. So Shan sticks up for her plan, but maybe doesn't do it in a good way because then Deshawn is mad at Shan.
I feel like Shan kind of pushed her plan more than sticking up for her plan. Where, like, I feel like from the edit that we saw, she never really even listened to Deshawn's reasoning before being like, no, 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 this is why we have to do my way. And I think that was the thing that got him upset because it seemed like she wasn't listening to him. And when you have an alliance, you want people to listen to you. So
some more communication problems between these two, but I liked how Deshawn pulled Shan aside and they worked it out and they were saying like, you know, tell me what I'm doing that you don't like, explaining the situation so that they can like listen to each other better and work out their communication problems so that they can work together moving forward. So I really liked that because Deshawn could have totally let this fester and grow, sort of like the Shan Ricard relationship. They don't really seem to like communicate after they have their problems together, but Deshawn saw something that he didn't like and then said something to Shan about it. So I liked that from Deshawn's point of view, that he's not just going to let this kind of maybe animosity between them fester, but then we see it maybe cause it gets brought back up at Tribal.
yes, it does. I feel like it's one of those things where like Jeff likes to pick at the cracks just because it makes for better TV. So
And I feel like pre-tribal, did Shan have a mistake? We see Shan going to Nasir and Heather saying, hey, Nasir, you're the backup. Hey, Heather, you're the backup. It wasn't my idea to make you the backup, but other people are saying you're the backup. But Shan, from what we saw, didn't give any names of like, oh, Nasir, Danny and Deshawn are saying your name. Oh, Heather, Nasir said your name to like give some credibility to what she's saying. So when Shan's going up to these people saying like, hey, you're the backup and not giving names, it sort of seems like, at least for Heather, Heather is sort of maybe shooting the messenger, like, why would Shan do that kind of thing? Nasir and Heather are both unhappy because their name is being brought up and could go home if an idol is played. We see Heather have a confessional saying that Shan is the one talking or taking on the role of telling everyone else what to do, which is interesting that we're now seeing Heather and Deshawn both verbalize some issues that they're having with Shan thus far, and which I feel like we haven't really seen a lot before.
yeah, I think the main thing is Shan doesn't want to throw other people under the bus because then it gets a whole lot more complicated. Because what if she says, Heather, Deshawn said your name, and then, Heather goes to Deshawn and says, um, well, Shan told me that you said my name, and then you have the potential to get in the middle of something gross. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like for Shan to be the messenger in both situations might come across poorly because now Nasir and Heather, if they don't have a name to go off of, could just turn it around and be mad at you because you were the last person that they talked to. You were the person that gave them the bad news of being the backup vote. And warranted. I am glad Nasir and Heather both stood up for themselves and were like, heck no, I'm not going to be the backup vote. And they didn't just let other people say that they're going to be the backup vote, but they realized being the backup vote is dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, like, it's hard because you need a backup vote and you need to tell someone a name, but whoever's name it is going to be pissed. So you kind of can't win.
Yeah, and I wonder if like Heather and Deshawn being, or Heather and Nasir being told that they're the backup vote, do they realize that maybe they're not at the top of the alliance rankings, that maybe they need to make some moves or do some kind of move next week or flip on people, find new alliance members? Because for Nasir, at least, it's like Danny and Deshawn were the two people throwing out Nasir's name to go home. They're all OG tribe strong potentially. Is Nasir going to learn that his own tribe members were trying to get him voted out, or is Nasir going to stick with them?
I feel like Heather definitely realizes that she's at the bottom, but I think Nasir is playing such a loyal game that he might not.
Yeah. But going into tribal council, there are so many different plans going on. Xander's on the chopping block, Tiffany's on the chopping block, Nasir and Heather are on the chopping block. Xander, before tribal, had a funny confessional. He names the episode Betraydar. I feel like Xander has a lot of good one-liners. He was talking about debugging code this episode to find the problem, which is really on brands for his whole app developer job that he has. And last week he said bingo bango, which is just so weird, but it's funny. I'm going to start saying bingo bango now. Like, it's just so odd.
Yeah, I feel like he definitely is a character. He has a lot of personality, especially since I kind of anticipated he would just be like frat boy. It was nice to see that he's a little more than that.
Yeah. And then tribal council, Heather is funny. She just waits until Jeff is like, let's vote. And then she's like, no, oh, wait, I thought we could talk before we vote, which I was like, huh? Maybe because Blue never went to tribal council, Heather doesn't realize that after Jeff says, oh, it's time to vote, that they go and vote. And it's not like a live tribal every week. And it's not a forum every time that they can just talk about it at tribal. But I don't know. I hope, like, does this group expect that they're having live tribals every week? That's why Heather was like, oh, I thought we get to talk. It's going to get old if they all expect that they're going to have more talking time at tribal council and they like stand up and do all this talking every week.
Yeah, like tribal shouldn't be the time when you finish your plans. So just once, I would like Jeff to say, no, we're voting now, instead of letting them just be like, okay, let's have another like 15-minute powwow.
Yeah, everyone sit down. Heather, maybe low-key trying to save Tiffany. She starts the live tribal to get the votes on Nasir instead of Tiffany. I sort of thought low-key that Heather maybe would have gotten voted out. And this would be her whole story arc of being purpled, and then she sort of gets herself voted out because she starts a live tribal because she didn't get any screen time until this episode. And I was like, oh, a little bit nervous for Heather there, but alas. It would have been sort of funny though if that was her story arc.
It would have been, but also would have been kind of sad. So I'm glad that wasn't. I wish that we had seen more of Tiffany this episode just because I felt like this was kind of a sad ending to her story arc where it was like the Yase turtles kind of flopped and we didn't really get to see Tiffany's side of things. It was mostly Evie and Xander. So
yeah, Tiffany in the Ponderosa video exit interviews, she has a very big personality. She was fun. She was on the up and up too this season, after the Voce vote and the balance beam as a low. Then she started to come on the up and up and have people wanted to root for her. And she seems really cool and really chill. So it was sad to see her get voted out here, but I'm glad that she's the queen of Ponderosa. So she can go over there and then formulate how the jury works.
yes, that is going to be super exciting. So
with the tribal also, Ricard telling Xander to play the idol twice, I felt like that was so obvious. If you have some rando next to you saying like, Xander, play the idol, Xander, I think you should play the idol, like, I would just feel like, oh, they're trying to flush it, unless it's someone that you're super close with. From the edit, we haven't really seen Xander and Ricard as buddy friends. So it's like if some person is telling you play the idol multiple times, it's like a little bit sketch. I wouldn't play the idol.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Ricard might have overplayed it a little.
So Tiffany gets voted out, and no idol gets played, no advantage gets played. And this is sort of bad, I feel like, because we're going into the final 10 with 3 people with idols, with Shan, Nasir, and Xander. Are they basically almost guaranteed to final 5? Because if you're going to vote all 3 of them out before 5, like, you're going to have to do it now, and you're going to have to blindside them so they get voted out with an idol in their pocket, or it's going to take 2 votes to get them out. So say you put more votes on Xander next week, it gets rid of his idol, and then you can vote him out in 2 weeks. But then if you're going to do that for Shan and Xander and Nasir, you're going to run out of time before final 5 in order to flush or get rid of all their idols. So it's like, if they can make it a little bit further, 1 or 2 more votes, and they still have their idol on them, they could easily make it to 5, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like it would require some finesse by a group of people in order to flush more than one idol at once. So I would be interested to see like a Nasir Xander split vote, and then like one person votes for, I don't know, Shan or something. Like maybe that's how Heather ends up going home, is there's a idol split or a vote split between 2 people with idols, and on the revote Heather goes home, you know? So it would be interesting. I hope that it's not just the people who have idols hang on to their idols the whole time, because that's boring.
Yeah, everyone else is running out of time. They really need to put some gas under, we need to get rid of these idols or get rid of the people with idols in their pocket, because time's a ticking. They're going to get to the final 5 and it's going to be advantage get in again. So,
yeah, and the people who don't have idols should really be like prepared for that, especially the Survivor super fans who saw Sari go home having not gotten any votes. Like, you don't want to be Sari.
oh my gosh, imagine, yeah, final 6. 3 people can be immune with idols. 1 person that won the immunity challenge. That's 4 out of 6. 2 people left. So it's like, that's too much. And then they could both maybe play their shot in the dark. No votes for anyone because everyone is safe. Plus, I feel like Xander could have a good chance of winning immunities. Shannon Nasir also. I feel like all of those 3 are fairly athletic and could be good at like balance and puzzles and stuff. So they could all win immunities until final 5 also. So dangerous for everyone else that doesn't have an idol and guaranteed safety.
Yeah. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes. I think things definitely aren't looking good for Shan based on the preview for next week, but I feel like it would be like really heavy-handed for them to like foreshadow her going out just in the preview. So I guess we'll have to see where that goes also.
Yeah, I agree. It's more likely like the person that is in the preview to get to go home is the person that wins immunity, or they end up safe or something. It's never so blatant that it's the person in the preview that goes home, really.
Yeah. Do we have anything else we want to talk about, or I don't think we do? No.
You can end us out, Alyssa.
Yes, send us home. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Whose side are you on in papaya-gate? Team Ricard, Team Shan, Team Why Are We Talking About This? What do you think the magical advantage that Xander didn't get was? Do you think that he got to turn back time like Erica did? What were your opinions? Were you sad that Tiffany went home? Let us know all that and anything else in the comments down below. And we will see you guys next week. Bye!